Miami Dolphins got some great news heading into Week 11 against the Las Vegas Raiders. It's not only the great news that the Dolphins finally won the week prior and are looking to go to a back-to-back win for the first time, but they actually got some players potentially back at practice. And we'll talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. But we'll start with the good, and it's that Isaiah Wynn is back to practice. I got to be honest, folks. I'm a little stunned by this. Mike McDaniel said 2 or 3 weeks ago that he's not sure when Wynn is going to return, so I assumed that it was going to be probably closer to December, but here we are in Week 11 in mid-November, and Isaiah Wynn is returning to practice. His 21-day practice window is open, so it's no guarantee that he's going to be back before this game, but is likely that he will be back before the Packers game in Week 13, or at least be available to be activated to this 53-man roster. And it could not come at a better time if you are the Miami Dolphins, especially when you think of the Robert Jones injury, which we'll touch on in just a second. But let's take it back a year ago when Isaiah Wynn was signed in free agency to a 1-year deal from the New England Patriots. And he was your starting left guard. And he did not have the best season in the first 6 or 7 games prior to suffering the injury. You see the grades, they weren't great. Didn't allow a sack, but he had a couple penalties, was not that good in the run game, and didn't fit as nicely as you would have thought he would have, since he's an athletic guard and you need to be an athlete in this Mike McDaniel offensive system on the offensive line. And he is recovering from a quad injury, and it was actually revealed on the first injury report of the week on Wednesday as well that it was a knee injury too. So it was a quad knee injury combined for Isaiah Wynn. But the fact that he is going to be practicing and likely activated to the 53-man roster in the next 2 weeks, maybe before that game against his old team in the New England Patriots next Sunday, that is great news for the Fins as they are getting banged up on the offensive line, something they avoided for the first 10 weeks of the year, but then right before Week 10 and in Week 10, they suffer a couple injuries. And we're going to continue this conversation in a second, but just make sure to follow us on Instagram at DolphinsTodayIG. We crossed 500 followers this past Monday, which means we're doing a Dolphins Q&A only on our Instagram. Not sure if it will happen this week, but it will happen at least next week. So make sure you're following us on Instagram and send us a question on that mailbag post or DM us for a question. All right, let's get over to Robert Jones now, because on Wednesday when Mike McDaniel spoke to reporters, labeled him as day-to-day. He left that Monday Night Football game against the Rams halfway through after playing about 26, 27 snaps and did not return. And Jones has been your starting left guard the entire season, and we noted earlier on the week with Austin Jackson being out for the year, you're a little thin on the offensive line right now. You only have 8 guys, one of them in Jones being a little banged up, and you really only have 2 guys on the interior because Patrick Paul can't play interior offensive line. He's never done it. So you have a UDFA Andrew Meyer and then Lester Cotton, who filled in for the second half against the Rams on Monday. And I have openly said that the Miami Dolphins absolutely should add an offensive lineman to this group, specifically at offensive tackle, because their only backup tackle right now is Patrick Paul, yet he's never played right tackle in his career, and God forbid Kendall Lamb gets banged up. You don't have a right tackle that's played there before. But with Isaiah Wynn coming back into the fold potentially, maybe the Dolphins don't need to add an offensive tackle. Because remember, yes, he played left guard last year for the Dolphins, but when he was in New England after being a first-round pick out of Georgia, he played on the interior and he played left tackle, right tackle. He could play almost every position on the offensive line outside of center. So getting him back, maybe he does not start right away, but he provides you insurance to where you can play him at right tackle if absolutely necessary, and you can also play him at left guard if Robert Jones is out for a long period of time. Wynn might not start as he's been out and away from football for a while, but having him as insurance and the versatility on the bench is absolutely going to be key, so it's great news that he is working his way back. But let's talk about Robert Jones now, because even though he is banged up, I think that we've given him a little bit of a bad rap. Is he perfect? No. Is he above average? No. Is he average? Maybe not. But is he absolute garbage? No. He's probably in that below average tier. He's been serviceable this year. Listen, you're not going to have a perfect offensive lineman every single position on that group. You have a really good offensive lineman in Teron Armstead, who's been terrific this year. Aaron Brewer has been great. So sure, yes, your left guard and right guard hasn't been the best, but you've gotten good play for the most part from Austin Jackson at right tackle, Aaron Brewer and Teron Armstead. And Jones has done enough for me not to absolutely lose my mind. In the first 3 weeks of the season against Jacksonville, Buffalo, and Seattle, was he bad? Yes. But since that Tennessee game and since that New England game in late September, early October, this offensive line has been good for the most part. Sure, did they have a bad game against the Rams and the run blocking department? Yes, but they have been better. But I do want everyone to mellow out a little bit with Robert Jones. I do. And shout out to Mellow, my new favorite drink. Shout out to them. If you have any questions, shout me out on Twitter, and I'll get you hooked up with them. But there's no need to be that concerned if Robert Jones misses time, especially if Isaiah Wynn is on the return, because Lester Cotton might be as good as Robert Jones. And Cotton was not good in the preseason, but when he filled in and played the entire second half for Miami at that left guard spot this past Monday, he was actually really good. And don't forget, folks, on Monday, the Dolphins were up and down in the first half, but in the second half, they had 3 possessions if you don't count for the kneel down possession at the end of the game. What happened in those 3 possessions in the second half? Touchdown, field goal, field goal. They scored on all 3 drives when Cotton was in there at left guard, and he graded out really nicely against Los Angeles. Listen, we're going to see how this plays out. I don't know if Robert Jones is going to be able to play this week. I don't expect Isaiah Wynn to be activated this week and play this week whatsoever. So it will be between either the left guard in terms of Robert Jones and Lester Cotton, but either way, I am a fan of the idea that Cotton is someone that is pretty solid. But let me know, are you concerned about the left guard spot down in the comments section? Because Robert Jones might miss this game. Type Y for yes or type N for no. All right, you heard the great news on Isaiah Wynn, but now it's time to go check in on another player that's been on the PUP list for the rest of the year, that being Bradley Chubb. He has still not been activated, and as he was asked, Mike McDaniel that is, about Chubb's return, says that Good will return probably sooner than Bradley Chubb, and Chubb is not ready to come back to practice this week, so he remains out. And this is unfortunate for Miami because they really need someone of his caliber to be on this defensive line, especially if they're trying to make a run in the postseason when their schedule toughens up after this 2-game stretch against the Raiders and Patriots. You hope he can, but I'm getting more and more pessimistic on the idea of him finally playing for this football team. But there is a revelation coming here for the Miami Dolphins. And I stated how important it was for Chubb to be back because Chop Robinson has been that bad. Well, folks, it's about time the first-round pick from Penn State has shown up. He has been absolutely terrific in the last 3 games. Ever since that game against Arizona, he had 3 pressures against the Cardinals, 3 pressures against the Bills, 6 pressures against the Rams and Matthew Stafford. He had a sack against Josh Allen in the 4th quarter. He had a sack against Matthew Stafford in the 1st quarter, donning that new Chop celebration afterwards as well. The rookie from Penn State has been fantastic over the last 3 games, and you hope he continues to build on this and showcases why he was a first-round pick. And before you go into the comment section and say, I was bashing him for the first 6 weeks, I don't get to jump on the bandwagon. No, I covered the team, and I told you he stunk through 6 weeks, which was true, but I'm happy that he's finally playing well, so I don't want to see any of those comments down below. And make sure you are subscribed to the channel because we are taking on the Las Vegas Raiders this week at home in the 305. But we're also taking them on here at Dolphins Today in the YouTube chat sports streets. Hit that sub button because if you win the sub battle, it's statistically proven you'll win the game. All right, let's move over to Kendall Fuller's injury now because he suffered a concussion this past Monday, and he was ruled out rather quickly. This actually, quote, came from Tuesday afternoon, but I wanted to showcase it on this injury news video today. And Mike McDaniel said we'll take a look at Kendall for sure. That's obviously not ideal in any way, shape, or form. So the most important thing is that we get all the feedback from the experts and make sure his health is okay. That timeline will be open-ended as that goes. And the Dolphins need Kendall Fuller out there for the long run. Cam Smith has been very up and down this year. Saran Neal is not really a boundary guy. And you haven't seen much of Ethan Bonner or Storm Duck this season. And Fuller's been pretty good this season. And I say he needs to be out there. Well, it won't be this week against the Las Vegas Raiders. And this is coming on Tuesday. They're saying that he will not be available in concussion protocol. It's not great, and it's scary because this is the second concussion of the season for Kendall Fuller. Remember, he also got concussed against the Bills like Tua in week 2 and was forced to miss week 3 against the Seattle Seahawks. So it's 2 concussions this year for Fuller, so you just really hope he gets healthy and is able to return at all this season. And I want to get the positive vibes flowing towards our guy, Kendall. Spread the word, spread the love to Fuller down in the comment section by spamming his jersey number 29. And if he is out for an extended period of time, you'll see a shift in this Dolphins cornerback room. Cam Smith will likely be the starting corner on the boundary opposite of Jalen Ramsey. You'll leave Kader Kohou in the nickel, but we'll see who ultimately gets activated. Ethan Bonner has been basically healthy and active every single game this season. Storm Duck was inactive this past week. You wonder which one of those two, because one of Ethan Bonner or Storm Duck will be active as your fourth or fifth corner, fourth boundary guy, that is. Fifth guy, and we'll see who it ultimately is. I'll be intrigued to see how it goes throughout this week. But we mentioned how good Fuller's been. Listen, the Dolphins have played 9 games. He only missed that 1 game in week 3, and he's been really, really good, allowing a completion percentage of just 56.5. Only 168 yards, only allowed 1 touchdown this year. Doesn't have an INT, but 4 PBUs, and the PFF grades are in the high 60s, which will play as well. Now, luckily for you, if Fuller is out for an extended period of time and misses 2 straight games, that is, here are your next 2 opponents. And we've talked about it quite a bit. The Raiders and the Patriots. You do not need Kendall Fuller to beat the Las Vegas Raiders at home. They are a bottom 5 offense in all of football. Gardner Minshew, Jacoby Myers, they don't scare me whatsoever. And you don't need Fuller out there to get a win. The Patriots game will be interesting because even though they have a bottom 3 offense in the entire NFL, with Drake May at quarterback, they have been much better. They've been much more explosive, and it will be a better Patriots team than the one you faced in week 5 when you were able to narrowly escape with a win with Tyler Huntley at quarterback. Granted, you still got a more of a healthy team now with Tua Tagovailoa, but when you think of the 2 teams in the NFL that you're playing next, they're not the best teams in terms of throwing the football and worrying about their pass-catching weapons on the perimeter. So it is a good little stretch here if Fuller has to miss multiple games. But make sure you are subscribed because, like I said, we'll cover you on everything Miami Dolphins news, and we'll be live this upcoming Sunday against the Las Vegas Raiders. So hit that sub button. Hopefully the Dolphins are able to get their 2nd straight win, something they have not done this year whatsoever.